Hey, podcast listeners, this is Victoria here. Hope all is well. Thank you for joining me for another episode of What's Your Brand Story podcast. I have an amazing gentleman here. He be doing amazing things. His name is Craig Martin. I wanted to invite him on a podcast because I always bring on entrepreneurs to talk about what they do, who they are, what sets them apart within their industry. And of course, I always ask the $1 million question: what is your definition of a brand story? So thank you so much for joining me today, Craig.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Had a little bit of glitches and challenges, but we got it together. So, can you tell
We,
everyone who you are and what you do?
I'm Craig Martin. I am a brand strategist, a business coach, and an entrepreneur.
Awesome. How did you get into being a multipreneur?
Well, it's a part of my life. I was born, raised into an entrepreneurial family, and embarked on my own journey after my studies. I
Mhm.
I worked for about 2 years of my life with three advertising agencies within that time frame, and then I eventually went out, started a design studio, which grew into a branding agency and grew into a full advertising agency.
That's what's up. How did that make you feel when you saw all of this success with just you being an entrepreneur, business coach, and all that stuff? Like, what was that moment like for you?
The beginning of the journey was hard because I
Hmm.
was into my family. They've been in brick and mortar businesses. They knew nothing about technology, and this was when things were changing over. So they had no clue of what I was doing. They could only give me guidance based on what they know, and they knew nothing
Hmm.
about what I was doing. And so for the first 2 years, it was a bit hard learning the business side of things and learning more about the technology, because you get out of school, you realize, okay, this is the real world. The things we learn over there, basically 10-20% applies here. So
Hmm.
you're going through that process, and I just happened to run into someone that became a mentor to me,
Hmm.
and that's when everything changes for me in my business.
That's awesome. What would you say is like the biggest lesson that you've learned that you apply moving, during your whole life as an entrepreneur?
There are multiple things. I wouldn't say there is one single thing, because your success, your
Hmm.
failure is a result of compounded actions.
Hmm.
But um, taking action when it is needed and being very strategic in allocating your resources.
Hmm.
That's
That's a
kind
good
of,
one.
yeah, that's things that I learned over time, like how to shift your resources around. Is like common people will talk about their strengths and weaknesses, and it's something I always tell people, like, I don't believe there are strengths and weaknesses in people. You just have attributes that are just undeveloped. There's no
Hmm.
need for a particular skill. You're not find time or allocate time or energy to develop that skill unless you need it.
Agreed 100% with that. So, what would you say would be a definition of a brand story to you?
The brand story is the shared experience with the brand and its audience, your customers. Uh,
Hmm.
Storytelling, again, there are multiple facets to that. And
Hmm.
sometimes the first thing people go to is their origin story,
Hmm.
which sometimes not it contributes to your brand story, but not the definition of the brand, what it is, what it stands for, because they'll share moments with your customer or the audience. That's what they take and create their own narrative of. That becomes your brand story. You may have an
Mhm.
idea of what your brand story is. They have a different idea. Their idea is the narrative that they form based upon your interaction with you or with the
Mhm.
brand.
Mhm. Agreed. What would you say was the biggest transformation that you experienced from the business that you have?
Humility, resilience. I don't like being an entrepreneur. It it changes who you are. It changes your approach to not just business but life.
Mhm.
The deeper you get, the humbler you become. You know, the problems, like the challenges that you face along your journey, they transform you into the person that become the success that you desire.
Agreed, 100% with that. Because I know on this entrepreneur journey, I went full time with my entrepreneurship in 2017, and it's like I had to realize and learn I don't have a safety net. I'm the safety net.
Yeah,
So,
but at
trying-
the end of the day, what is safe or what is considered
true,
safe?
yeah, because I think
You
it's
know,
full of
if,
a
if
whole bunch of risk. So,
everything is a risk. If you have a job, you have
that's
a job because somebody choose to take a risk. Is it
hmm
safe? No, because you take 10 years to build a business and a day for it to just crumble to the ground. Like nothing is safe. Like people
yeah.
are oftentimes, oh, in like especially now what we're going through, the first words out of people's mouth now is uncertain times. I'm like, when there has ever been a certain time.
This is true. You're absolutely right. Times are always uncertain from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep.
Yeah, it's just the way we frame things sometimes that
Yes.
give us the result that we desire.
Yep. So, based on what you just said just now, let's piggyback off of that. Like, how do you motivate yourself in those moments in time? Like, I don't know if you experience the imposter syndrome at times, or sometimes if you experience feeling, you know, not enough or discouraged if something's not going your way. Like, how are you able to pivot that mindset shift?
Well, in imposter syndrome, as long as you're a human, you're gonna face it at some point in time in your life. I
Mm-hmm.
do not depend upon motivation. I know it's common for people to use the term and the habits that go along with it. Um, I focus on discipline. Motivation requires a stimuli, and when that's not there, you everything is just gone. Because
Mm-hmm.
if something is not there to motivate you, you're not going to take action.
Agreed. 100% with that. I completely agree with that. So, what would you say was the most memorable compliment or review or something that a client has given you with, a job that you've done that they were like satisfied with, or that you left a lasting impression?
Ah, that's a tough one. I Everything I do, I try to give it my 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I am always against the grain with the work that I produce,
Mm-hmm.
and my clients really over the years appreciate it. And like it's very hard right now to pick one thing out. Like there's been a lot of appreciation for the things. Like there's one company that I did some work with, and that company is a company that really pivot me into the coaching space. Even though over the years you're technically been coaching your clients, but it wasn't something that you take on and say, okay, I'm doing this as part
Mm-hmm.
of what I do. But
Mm-hmm.
I had this company I was working with, and they got into a space where in the food and beverage industry, and they technically ran out of funds, and they decided, okay, we got to walk away because we have this, the the systems for their production was in place, but they were in the early stage building their brand, getting everything up, and they technically ran out of funds, and they decided, okay, we're gonna just walk away from this.
Mm-hmm.
And I I ran through the work that we had done with them previously, and trying to figure out what the mistakes were, like what did we miss?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we, especially in the creative space, a client come to you based on perception. They have no
Mm-hmm.
validation of the problem that they come to you with. So
Mm-hmm.
you're now addressing that problem, oftentimes not knowing that the problem doesn't exist, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever they think is the root cause of the problem, it's not. So you're doing what you're doing based on the information that they pass on to you. So
Mm-hmm.
I went back to the drawing board, and it was like, okay, we're done. We can't afford to pay you for nothing else. And I told him, like, just don't worry about it. We're gonna fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat down and we took everything. We tore everything right back down to the ground
Mm-hmm.
and start rebuilding the brand around that company. There
Mm-hmm.
was another company in the industry. It was there long before they got in, and I knew that company had made some major investments in their business.
Mm-hmm.
And jokingly, one day I was there, and I said, "These people are going to acquire you,"
Mm-hmm.
just just jokingly. And when we finished what we were doing and relaunched that company actually within like 18 months had approached them
Oh, wow.
to acquire their company. They did not know the size of the company until they were in their negotiation stage.
Oh, my goodness.
Because when I found, okay, I didn't go from their perspective. I went in on a company, I saw everything that was there, and I went in from my validation of what was happening and what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a small company. But when they got out there, they appeared like they were like 10 times the size they were.
Oh, wow.
But that company, based on that image, they weren't going to back from it. Because they were like, if you came out the door like this, what else are you capable of doing? So eventually they went through with the deal, and they acquired them. So that company in particular was one that had triggered me to kind of shift more into the coaching space. And at the time, the creative industry was kind of at its breaking point. Most
Mm-hmm.
advertising agencies were start facing problems and stuff like that. So it was a good time for me to start shifting my focus.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That's awesome. So my last question to you would be, what sets you apart from everyone that does what you do?
A real world experience on top of my acquired knowledge. I built up over the course of my time, um, 8 companies that I started on my own. I was co-owner of 2,
Mm-hmm.
and we had some great success from some of those companies. Some of them were total failure, but there were a lot of lessons that were learned along the way. So the things I do now is based purely on experience and available information, not just
Mm-hmm.
me studying something and taking secondhand information and then transforming that into a customer's life or business. It's real world experience and
Mm-hmm.
knowledge being shared with my clientele to help them to build a dream that They have the company, the business, the life of their dreams. Is me applying those to help them to accomplish those.
Great. Love that answer. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming on my podcast. I appreciate you and all that you do. Can you tell everyone where they can find you, connect with you, work with you, all that good stuff?
LinkedIn, Craig Martin. Instagram, I am Craig Martin, and I have an entrepreneur community which is acclimatedminds.com. So you can go there. It's more educational platform. I try to I do monthly mastermind, we do workshops, there's in-person networking events that I do. So it's a hub to learn the strategies, the insights to build your business, connect with other entrepreneurs, and just work together as a collective to achieve your goals.
Awesome. I love that. So definitely make sure that you tune in to Craig Martin podcast listeners. He dropped some great nuggets and gems. So if you're catching the replay, I hope that you're taking notes because he just dropped a whole bunch of different types of knowledge on us here on the podcast. So thank you so much once again. Thank you so much for listening, podcast listeners, to another episode of What's Your Brand Story podcast. I am your host, Stills Victoria. Till next time, see you guys soon. Bye.